Hello guys, so we'll be talking about the anomalous behavior of water. So what is the anomalous behavior of water? First thing first, we need to understand that the word anomalous also means abnormal. Abnormal. So we can replace the word anomalous for abnormal. So we can say the abnormal behavior of water. So what is the abnormal behavior of water? To understand the abnormal behavior of water, we need to first understand the normal behavior behavior of liquids. What is the normal behavior of liquids? Now, remember that water is also a liquid. We also have other types of liquids. So, in general, what is the normal behavior of liquids? Now, the normal behavior of liquid is this. When you remove heat energy from liquids, what happens is that they begin to contract. They begin to contract, right? So, as they are being cooled, they contract. So to contract simply means to reduce in volume, right? So when you remove heat energy from liquids in general, they begin to contract, they begin to shrink. Now, they keep shrinking until a certain temperature, until their freezing point, right? They now freeze. They will now freeze at their respective freezing point because every liquid has their own what do you call it? They have their own freezing point. So every liquid will contract at the removal of heat. They keep contracting until at their freezing point they freeze up, right? Now, when they freeze, they change their state to what? Solid state, right? Now, this is the normal behavior of liquids, right? In general, when you remove heat energy from them, they contract. At a certain temperature, they freeze. They freeze, right? But for water, it's different. Water doesn't behave this normal way. For water, when you remove heat energy from water, at first they contract. It contracts, right? It contracts. Now, at a certain point, it begins to do what? Expand, right? And then the next thing is that it freezes. It freezes, right? So you can see that the steps liquids in general take, right, is different from the step water takes. So liquids in general contract at the removal of heat and then freeze up at a certain temperature. While for water, when you remove heat, it starts to shrink, starts to contract, and then from contraction, instead of freezing, no, it doesn't do that. It expands. It was shrinking before, and then at some point it starts expanding, and then from expansion, it then freezes up, right? Now, the temperature at which water expands is 4 degrees Celsius. So when water contracts and get to the temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, it stops contracting and then starts expanding, right? Then at the temperature of 0 degrees Celsius, water begins to freeze. So there's a range to which water expands. Water expands at the range of 4 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius. So this is the temperature range water expands, right? Water expands at this temperature range. So when you remove heat from water, it keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, reducing its volume, right, until it gets to a temperature of 4. Once it gets to 4, it stops contracting and then starts expanding, right? Now it expands at this temperature down to 3 degrees Celsius, down to 2 degrees Celsius, down to 1 degree Celsius, keep expanding until it gets to 0 degrees Celsius. Once it gets to 0 degrees Celsius, it stops expanding and then immediately freezes, right? So this is the route water takes. It is abnormal when you consider it to what is normal for liquids in general. So the key point here is that water behaves in a different way from liquid, as we have explained, from other liquids, as we have explained. At the temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, water begins to expand. It stops contracting and then begins to expand. And then at 0 degrees Celsius, it begins to freeze up, right? So these are the key points to take. And then another thing that you need to also understand here is that at the temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, this is where the volume of water becomes least. The volume of water becomes least at 4 degrees Celsius. Volume volume of water is least at 4 degrees Celsius. At this same 4 degrees Celsius, the density of water is at its maximum. Density, the density of water is maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. 4 degrees Celsius. So at 4 degrees Celsius, the density of water is maximum at that temperature. That same temperature is where water has its volume the least, right? So these are the key points that should be taken here. Thank you very much.